over 100 would-be entrepreneurs have climbed the steps up into the dragon's den. They all hope to persuade at least one of the 5 dragons to invest in their business ideas.
I've never seen anything quite so ridiculous, to be perfectly honest.
I'm not going to risk my money on a gambler with no experience.
I don't believe in you, and I don't believe in the product.
There were tears, tantrums and tussles.
We're all opinionated. If you run a business, you are.
I don't have arrogance, I have belief.
This is not investable. That is not an innovation.
But a year on from the first series, how well have our entrepreneurs' money-making dreams fared?
Just take a couple more seconds just to think before you say the words last final offer.
What an obnoxious guy.
The Dragon's Den is empty now. But when we filmed the programme, we heard loads of ideas here for new businesses. There was plenty of enthusiasm too. Other programmes and magazines have tried to capture Britain's new entrepreneurial spirit. But have we got the nous to carry it off? What is it that makes an entrepreneur succeed? And what is it that can go wrong? Hugh Gwyther stepped into the den looking for cash to help launch a new upmarket glossy magazine aimed at both men and women.
I'm here today to present my business proposal to you for investing £175,000 in a new publishing company.
I think the most nerve-wracking thing about it was having to remember the pitch that you had to say at the beginning, and holding all that in your memory. That was what I was nervous about.
The primary aim of the business is to produce and successfully launch a uniquely positioned new publication into the UK consumer magazine market.
I thought he was incredibly charming, and he was absolutely on brand, and I always look for that. If someone is trying to do something classy and upmarket, you know, and he was classy and upmarket, and there was a very good fit there.
We are looking for investors to commit £250,000 to this venture, and we have already raised £75,000 towards that goal.
When the Dragons decide whether to invest in someone like Hugh, they use an intriguing mixture of art and science.
It's that sense of them having a very clear idea of it. Of course, enthusiasm and passion and all those things come into it. That's almost a given. But having a real sense, and also having a sense of the glitches.
I always ask myself, can they communicate to me the problem or the benefit? If they can't communicate what problem they're solving or what benefit they're providing and do it in terms of the customer's point of view, then they're never going to persuade a customer, they're never going to persuade a shareholder, they're never going to persuade a partner, and they're certainly not going to persuade me.
What we aim to create is an important modern brand that will quickly become synonymous with good taste, style and originality.
People were quite nasty to him, and he accepted it very graciously, which I think is a very good sign.
There's nothing I've heard that's more than a dream.
I have already raised £75,000 worth of investment into the business.
Who from?
From 3 different individuals, each putting in £25,000, and then family or friends.
They're fools.
They're respected businessmen.
You stayed very quiet. The others were really quite vicious to him. I mean, I didn't think he stood a chance. What was it that made you buy into Hugh Gwyther?
What I saw in front of me was a guy that absolutely knew exactly what he was talking about end to end. He was very specific about what he was going to do and what it could result in. I enjoyed watching the other dragons scramble around and clearly missed the opportunity. And that's why I was so quiet, because I was just praying that all 4 of them would get out quickly, to which they did. I'm going to give you one opportunity, and it's going to be only one opportunity, but I am willing to go down to 40%.
It's a very interesting proposition, which I will accept.
Well done.
I'm confident that I would have found another way to make the business work eventually, but I wouldn't have found something so quickly and so right, I think, with so many kind of added benefits as well.
Well, the magazine has been produced. It's Hugh's big night, the launch party. It deserves a drink or two. Creating a glossy magazine from scratch is an immense achievement. But it still has to sell, and not just once, time after time. We'll come back to Hugh to see how he's getting on. Jewellery designer Elizabeth Galton stepped into the den, hoping to persuade the Dragons to help her launch a ready-to-wear collection.
I am aiming to create couture look design that's highly distinctive with impeccable quality but at off-the-peg prices.
She hoped her existing extravagant haute couture range would impress the Dragons.
I thought she was a very composed person wearing the most extraordinarily ugly jewelry I'd ever seen in my life.
And how would one wear this, Elizabeth?
It just sits around the neck and the orchid sits in the middle.
And it would be
that's it.
primarily for women, though?
Yes.
And I'm struggling to realise where this could go.
Again, this piece...
I'm actually worried to ask you.
be
Could
a
you just take it back?
brooch, yeah.
Thank you.
It was a terrifying experience. I think I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's difficult enough pitching a business without cameras. Add that into the mix,
Without cranking up the
and
stairs before you
it's very
start.
potent. They were tough.
You've got to be a businesswoman.
Yes.
You've got to be a full-on businesswoman.
yeah.
And from what I'm getting from you right now, you're not a businesswoman.
Right.
You're a designer who's got a good bit of front.
I think having been out of the RCA for 4 years, I would have sunk without a trace if I didn't have a certain amount of business acumen.
As she stood up under the scrutiny and the questions, she came back with answers and she smiled and she laughed all the way through it. I thought she was really good and she would really have a go at it.
Elizabeth was impressive in standing her ground, but she had a job convincing some of the Dragons of the mass market potential of this kind of jewellery.
My biggest challenge here is the gap between what you do today, which is intended to be provocative and on the edge, and what you seek to do, which is intended to reach a mainstream audience, admittedly led from a promotional point of view.
You're the one who always wants to see evidence that something will sell. And yet with Elizabeth, you had no evidence that the little stuff was going to sell, did you? Because you hadn't sold any when she came to Dragon's Den.
It's not an exact science, and you've got to put a lot of things together. I knew there was risk with Elizabeth, but I thought the bigger picture was worth the risk.
I think the big attraction with the investment was that the company would own the Elizabeth Galton brand. And therefore, what she was actually doing with it at that current time wasn't as relevant as the fact that you were owning a potential talent that could become a Lulu Guinness.
Impressed by Elizabeth's potential, Duncan and Rachel agreed to invest £55,000 each.
You're happy with that? Well, I think if the 30% is non-negotiable, then yes, I'd be happy with it.
Well done, Elizabeth.
Well done. Well done.
Fantastic.
This is going to be interesting.
Since then, Elizabeth's been working hard to perfect the designs for her ready-to-wear collection. It's not as glamorous as you might think. Her studio is in her dad's back garden. And even the grandest designs have to confront the petty realities of human relationships. In this case, the reality was that Rachel's investment in Elizabeth never happened. I don't know who's to blame, but believe it or not, they fell out after Rachel used a piece of Elizabeth's jewellery in a photo shoot. Elizabeth claimed Rachel commissioned the piece and so sent her a bill for nearly £4,000. Rachel argued the jewellery was given on a promotional loan and refused to pay. Eventually, she agreed to pay half the amount as a goodwill gesture.
When you're making an angel investment in someone, you're not just bringing money to the table, you're bringing mentoring, your expertise, your advice, and it's vitally important that you get on and you have a rapport and you have a good working relationship with that person. And I just think Elizabeth is quite belligerent in her approach, and I think she needs to tone that down.
But I mean, was there just a simple misunderstanding that she thought she was selling you something and you thought you were borrowing something? And then...
I think if Elizabeth is prepared to take on commissions without covering basics like estimating, giving a quotation on how much it's going to cost and making sure the client's happy to pay that amount and getting factors like that clear on a commission, I'd really question her business judgment.
It sounds like a kind of playground squabble, really. It's almost as though the personalities got in the way, because you're both big egos, basically, aren't you?
There were fundamental differences of opinion between Rachel and myself, and as a result of those differences, we decided not to go into partnership together.
Just tell me whether these differences were business or personal?
Business is business, personal is personal, and my relationship with Rachel was always business.
Even though Elizabeth lost Rachel's investment, she didn't lose Duncan's, and she did make some progress. But then she had an offer from some new investors.
About 8 months after his pledge on Dragon's Den, I obviously was made this new offer, and I approached Duncan to buy him out, which I did successfully.
I said, Elizabeth, I'll send my investment back to you as long as I can make a 25% profit on the money I've given you. And she says, no problem at all. She gave me a check and I walked away. So Elizabeth has gone her way with these investors, and she's done better than the investment I offered her. I've had a good return on my investment, and we're all happy.
With new investment behind her, Elizabeth has been able to get going in earnest on her ready-to-wear range. What she needs, though, are orders. Later, we'll find out if they're coming in. When Charles Ajogo walked up the stairs of the den, he was hoping to have the dragons singing in the rain over his umbrella vending machine.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Ajogo. I'm here to pitch today the umbrella vending concept.
Obviously, I was excited, but I was under no illusions. I mean, my mum was probably the only person that said, you know, this is probably where the work will begin.
We're looking for £150,000.
I thought Charles came across very, very well. He was very friendly. He smiled. He looked like he was enjoying it up there.
We've developed the world's first and only umbrella vending machine. We've actually won a contract to place this machine across the London Underground.
You could see he believed in it. He was passionate about it. And if anybody that passionate really gets a good idea and runs with it, he would do very well.
It's a multimedia vending machine, and that it also has a screen on the front of it through which we display TV-type quality adverts.
Aren't what you're really asserting is that you snuck billboards into the underground?
The guy was sweating, he was absolutely totally under pressure, he was under fire, he was answering all the questions, and I thought he did a fantastic job.
I think I was pretty clear and realistic in what I offered, and I was pretty measured in what I said. And so I think I basically gave the story of what we could offer there and then.
You've combined a basic concept of selling umbrellas. And then I suspect what has happened is you realized you had a billboard that you weren't taking advantage of. Which is the more profitable business?
It's basically split like this. The advertising on the screen is probably worth double the branding and the umbrella sales.
What was I clear on? I was clear that he was going to have umbrella vending machines with plasma screens in the entire London Underground because he already had a contract. That was what I was clear about from his pitch.
It was actually one of those things that you thought, brilliant idea, brilliant guy, this is a done deal.
I'm interested in making an investment, but I'm not happy with the valuation on the company.
I think 20% is realistic.
I know you think it, but the company's not making any money.
Charles, I'm going to make this interesting now. I'm going to offer you £75,000 for 22% of your company.
Charles, I'm also happy to offer you £75,000 for 22%. So that means you've got your money, £150,000. But we're looking for 44% of the equity of your company.
The dragons are notorious for driving a hard bargain when they invest. But there is a logic to them asking for a big share of the company in which they're investing.
I want to be able to work out potentially what is the opportunity in value terms. So I'm trying to see if I put in £100,000, how quickly I can get that money back.
If it's worth $1 million in 5 years, generally speaking, the easiest way to do it is divide by 10. 5 years, divide by 10. Why? Because I want a 10-fold increase so that I can get about 200% per year.
You would sort of think, if the business is going to be worth $1 million in 5 years, it's probably worth £100,000 now. That's how I'd buy into it. More or less, we can argue about the
oversimple math.
That sounds like an awfully big return to you.
Here's what I do know. If I have 10 investments, and across those 10 investments, one of them returns and 9 of them fail, then the one investment has to carry the load of all the other 9 failures. So it's not a question of do I make 1,000%. The question is whether I even make 100%.
If that's the final offer, then I'll accept the offer.
After intense negotiations, Peter and Duncan slightly reduced their demands for equity. They agreed to invest £75,000 each, and for this, they got 40% of the company.
Charles, I look forward to seeing you as Entrepreneur of the Year. I think the opportunity's there.
Absolutely.
We walked away from there thinking, I think Duncan and I have got a cracking deal here.
But the realities of business always assert themselves. When they looked at Charles's umbrella venture closely, Peter and Duncan found it had holes in it.
After the programme, Charles produced what he considered was a contract. And at the end of the day, it actually says in that contract, you cannot advertise in the vending machines, even if you get them into the stations. So because you can't advertise, his product didn't work.
They were definitely left with the impression, effectively, that you had a contract with London Underground that allowed you to put advertising in tube stations.
No, I wouldn't agree. I think possibly...
They were definitely left with that impression.
Well, I don't think so. I think that, as I said, it was pretty clear. I think I was very clear on what I pitched and what I sold that day. I don't think I oversold it. And there again, I also don't think that... I think there was a clear distinction made with what was under contract that day and what we were hoping to sign in the future.
Maybe he said 1 or 2 things that he should have just been absolutely dead straight, warts and all.
He overspun his...
He overspun it, and I think that that's the slight disappointment. And that's the reason why the investment didn't go ahead.
The contract that we have in place allows us to put the units in and sell the umbrellas. It doesn't say that, it doesn't give us the right to advertise. That's something that we need to work with other partners that essentially own and control those rights.
For Charles, there's more to the world than London Underground. He's still trying to sell umbrellas in vending machines. Later, we'll see if he's succeeding. When Rachel Lowe entered the den, she hoped to persuade the Dragons to help her get her new game, Destination London, off the ground.
Walking up the stairs, I was incredibly optimistic because I had complete belief in the product that I'd created. I was excited, very nervous and very apprehensive, but I had nothing to lose by being there. So I figured, I'd give it my best shot.
Now, I came up with the idea for this game whilst working as a taxi driver in Portsmouth to pay my way through my university law degree. Further investments will mean that I can get future additions to market, which include Destination New York, Destination Paris, in fact, any capital city of any country. It really is a fantastic investment opportunity.
Do you know how many new games are introduced every year?
How many new games?
Yes, board games.
In the UK market, I think there's about 20 each year being introduced.
And what percentage of them last more than a year?
I don't know that.
Okay.
The first rule of Dragon's Den, make sure you've done your homework. And some extra reading too.
I believe that the best businesses are planned with a very clear plan on how the investors, including the founder, are going to make money from it.
If 30,000 units are sold within 1 year, the net profit on that is 190,000.
No, the gross profit on it might be 190,000, but the net profit certainly is not. You've just lost me completely, my interest. We can't even have a basic business discussion.
If someone comes in and they don't understand business basics, the risk goes way up because you're thinking this person, how are they going to cope in meetings? Will they understand what's being talked about? Are they going to be vulnerable to kind of doing bad deals?
I do feel for you because you've come into this environment. You remind me of a bit like a sort of lamb to the slaughter in some ways. I think your presentation was a bit confused. I don't get the sense that you've just got that kind of business snappiness.
I just completely was blown away by what they had said, not expecting that at all.
What annoys me is that you have managed to put all this effort and time into something and yet stand here in front of me and be a wasted opportunity. I'm annoyed for you, I'm annoyed at you. Maybe this is going to be the best learning experience of your life, and maybe you will succeed, but I'm out.
Well, no self-respecting entrepreneur would let a few scornful words stop them. Rachel launched Destination London last year without the Dragon's cash. And guess what? It was a bestseller at the big London toy store Hamleys.
I walked away as a loser, but I still went on and did it. And now I've got a great future ahead of me, stronger for the experience.
Rachel's done fantastically well to get this far. But to build a business that's viable for the long term, she needs her game to be more than a one-year hit. We'll come back to Rachel to see whether she's top of Hamley's list this Christmas. When intrepid entrepreneurs venture into the Dragon's Den to make a pitch, we hear their dreams and hopes. But business outside is always a hard slog. Richard and Barbara Simpson-Burks entered the den with a new method of erasing tattoos. Trouble was, the Dragons didn't like the look of them or their business.
I don't believe there are enough people in the United Kingdom with tattoos who are going to pay £1,000 to have them removed.
You're not clued up, Richard. You're not clued up on the figures, the financials, and actually what you want to do with this.
You're very opinionated, Barbara.
We're all opinionated. If you run a business, you are.
Duncan irritated me from the moment I got on there. He does it to everybody in actual fact, but it did feel a very personal thing.
We've now got about a dozen franchises in the UK. We've got a couple in Germany. We've had a lot of interest from the States. It's very encouraging.
People are very willing to pay the money. They see it as good value for money, very good value for money.
While it sounds promising, Tattoo Erase isn't showing a profit yet. James Brown dreamt of restoring an historic Scottish castle to its former glory.
It will cost about £2 million to restore, but I reckon I could make about £3.2 million on the sale of timeshares.
If I look at you, I wonder, are you going to pull it off?
I think I'm actually on the verge of success.
But James,
investors
it's a ruin.
I already had 2 investors at the time I appeared on Dragon's Den. Since then I had 1 new investor, which is actually my wife. So you're back to family, friends and fools, as the millionaires talk about. There are moments when I look up at these broken walls and think, oh my goodness. The most common question I'm asked about this building is, why are you doing it? And my answer is, because I can see it with a roof, with glass in the windows, candles lit, log fires burning. I can see it re-inhabited. I can see the vision, and I'm driven by that. But also I'm driven by a personal belief that we should be here in life to make a contribution that lives on after us.
A bold and impressive ambition, and one that still needs £2 million spent on it. The Dragons were excited by a device that rocked babies to sleep, but not the businessman behind it.
Your price is totally wrong. You're not going to make £600 million out of this product.
And I can see you losing the whole thing.
1 year later, Graham Whitby and Barry Haig dared to make a second trip to the den.
Out of all of the people in my life that I ever expected not to see again, it was you two.
I'm on my way out so fast.
Yeah. Can I just try and pull you back in if I can?
No.
No.
Graham and Barry now talk up their business. They're selling up to 600 units a month direct to shops, they say. But they try to skirt over the fact there's a rival product.
Never before has a baby been rocked on a pushchair or a pram. And so we've got a double-edged sword, really. We've got to sort of instigate the market and also sell into it. I think it's just a case of keep moving forward and never give up, because if you believe in something, don't drop it.
It's not going to make them £600 million, but it's got the potential to make them a good living. The first issue of Wonderland magazine is in the shops. Hugh Gwyther's protective of the sales data, but however the first one sells, his team now have to produce the second. The work never stops.
Would you be able to open up the cover file? But yeah, it's a bit lighter. Okay. That's good. Peter has left us completely alone on the editorial side of things. Everything that we've put into the magazine, we've done off our own backs, and it's been my team that I've put together, small team for the magazine. So, no, we've been given carte blanche to do what we want.
He hasn't stood over your shoulder?
No, absolutely not.
Hugh and Peter Jones are on a publicity mission to drum up interest in their magazine. Today they're making an appearance on Radio 5 Live.
And 175,000 of your money went into this. What are you hoping to get back, Peter?
I haven't looked at it from a financial perspective, but I certainly looked at it from the next year or two. I think that Hugh potentially could build one of the leading niche brands in the marketplace.
And what does Wonderland offer, which all the thousands of other magazines on the shelves don't?
Well, we see it as a bit of a destination, if you like. It takes you out of reality and it's just, you know, a visual feast and takes you a bit on a journey to this Wonderland.
Hugh's passion for his product is a big plus, but should he base business decisions on personal intuition rather than research?
It is driven a lot by my gut instinct, and my gut instinct was always telling me that there is room in the market for a magazine that I felt was missing, that I wanted to read. You know, I think a lot of publishing these days has lost a little bit of fun, and that's what we're trying to put back.
Is there a danger that maybe Hugh is producing a pure creative product that Hugh either himself would love to buy, rather than one which there's a big market for out there?
Maybe if Hugh was on his own, maybe that's the road perhaps he would go down. The fact that he isn't on his own and he has somebody that has a financial interest, i.e. me, we're going to have serious discussions if he's taking the magazine down a road that actually is generating either zero or no income and losing substantial money.
Him here.
Today, Hugh and advertising manager Job Musters are on a brisk tour of London to get key companies on board.
But never square. It will make or break him, so he's got to buy the best.
They say first impressions count in this business, so Hugh's dressed to impress in his one and only suit, a 21st birthday present.
You never quite know how a meeting's going to go before you walk in. You never can predict what kind of mood someone's going to be in, but it's all about having the meeting and reading the person and deciding how to deal with them on a one-to-one basis.
A key part of Hugh's sales pitch to advertisers is the fact that Wonderland is aimed at both men and women. But does that double your market or destroy it?
I think it's either a very good men's magazine or a good women's magazine, but it's not both, and I don't think my original opinion has changed one whit. And furthermore, as I understand it, he's now being stocked on the men's racks. So the actual real world has now confronted Hugh. There is no men and women's rack.
Most striking to me is just how many magazines there are on the rack. It's the same for any entrepreneur in an established market. It's a struggle to squeeze onto the shelf and make an impression. I mean, let's talk about this positioning here. It's not very high up, but that's okay. It's not too bad, is it?
No, it's good. I'm encouraged.
Just looking at it, though, I'm not sure. Is it in the right place? I mean, you've got sort of these raunchy lads mags up here.
It's not exactly in the right place. I think
FHM next to it, that's not what you want.
No, I think WH Smith is still working out exactly where it should go.
I mean, I'll tell you what strikes me as we stand here. Mm-hmm. When you look around this store, there are so many magazines here. How on earth do you find a small niche that nobody's already done? There's nothing nobody's already thought of, is there?
Well, I think, yeah, it has its own unique selling point in the fact that it's for both men and women, and in fact it's bi-monthly, so it's every 2 months. And also I think there is an argument to be made for always, trying to do something better than anyone else. Maybe not necessarily so different, although there are different points, but it's also trying to reach for a higher standard, and I think that's what I'd say we're doing.
The second issue of Wonderland has gone to press. Now Hugh's off to the printers to give the magazine the final sign-off.
It's going to be very interesting to see what it looks like, because you never know until you finally hold the final magazine in your hands exactly what it's going to look and feel like. So it's very exciting and a bit nerve-wracking as well right now.
Hugh's done very well to actually get that issue out, and it's a great foundation, but the thing about the magazine business is you've got to sell time and time again, and you've got to build your readership, and that's the next challenge for him.
It's a great feeling to see them finally coming off and all neatly trimmed and ready to go. It's fantastic. The issue looks amazing. Really, really thrilled to see it. It is, you know, it is so much work putting it all together, and you know, to see it like this, it's the second issue, but it still gives you such a thrill.
We don't have the numbers, but Hugh tells us sales look to be 10% higher than the first issue. Elizabeth Galton needs to get stores to order her jewellery, so she's having publicity shots taken, which she hopes will wow the buyers.
There's a lot of jewellers in the market, there's a lot of jewellery in the market, there's a lot of different names and different makes. And this might not sell, even though it's a good quality, good standard piece. It might not sell because people don't want that name.
I always knew, and I think this came across in my pitch to Dragon's Den, for me it was never about just having one small boutique in London. I do want this to be a global brand, and I do want to sell on a large scale.
This is the factory in Leicestershire, which will make Elizabeth's ready-to-wear jewellery collection if she can persuade stores to order it. Now, though, they're making the samples, which will be used to attract buyers. Elizabeth's visiting to ensure everything is up to standard.
It's a bit like Christmas for me at the moment. I get very excited when we get the products coming off the production run, if you like. To now see a ready-to-wear collection up and running, it's great.
Elizabeth seems to have an eye for quality, but does she have an eye for the books?
Something that I've learned very quickly over the last 6 months since Dragon's Den was that you do have to have a handle on the figures. You can't leave it to somebody else. I think that's where inevitably you run into problems. Whilst I might be a designer first and foremost, I would like to think that I've become quite business savvy over the last year.
She's what the Scots would call canny. You know, she's got a smart head. She's not a classical businesswoman, but she's canny and she's smart, and I can imagine her in a meeting picking up something and taking it a bit like that. So yes, I think she probably is a bit more of a businesswoman than I thought.
But her business brain is more than just a hard-headed mastery of the science of business. You need the soft stuff too, a drive, a self-belief. Do you have to have an enormous ego to make this kind of thing work, do you think? Are you an egotistical person? You seem incredibly together, really.
I don't think anybody in their right mind would admit to being egotistical. I think you have to be very determined, and I do think you have to just sort of put yourself out there for every opportunity, and obviously I do that because I want the brand to succeed.
Are you neurotic?
I think all designers, to an extent, are neurotic. I think that sort of we're all slightly eccentric, and I think that's sort of helps the dynamic really.
Business is a science for some people, and it's an art for other people. It's one of the reasons large corporates are very safe, and they don't do the sort of jobs that entrepreneurs do. Is that they are process driven, and so they look at the numbers.
Elizabeth needs to get people talking about her ready-to-wear collection, and so she's on a PR offensive. She's meeting fashion stylists to persuade them to give her jewellery exposure in the right magazines. Her trusty PR advisor, Sally Ann Shrimpton, is on hand to ensure things go smoothly.
Lovely to see you. And you. Hello, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
The PR, the public relations side of the business, seems to be incredibly important to you. Why is it so important?
The PR side of things is absolutely vital to garnering interest from the public, from buyers and the press. I speak to my PR agent, Sally, every day.
Every day?
Every day, yeah, because it's such a
More
vital...
important than the banker. I mean, as important as the investor in your life.
Yes.
It's like your psychotherapist.
Yes. Sally is pretty much on call 24/7 at the moment.
Actually, some of the feedback we've had from buyers has been that they do want some of the smaller pieces even smaller. And it's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think she leans towards having too much confidence in PR companies to actually sell the name, and she should really be concentrating on making the jewellery and getting out there now.
You can never build a business on public relations. I would say it's the cement that helps to hold everything together.
What Elizabeth really needs, though, are orders, and she's just got one from a department store in Hong Kong. Now, every piece in the order has to be checked to ensure it's up to Elizabeth's exacting standards.
It's never been as busy as this, and I think we've definitely got our work cut out now for the next 6 months.
I think Elizabeth's going to make it. I think her jewellery's going to sell. I think Elizabeth Cottonham's going to be terrific. I think it might take her a little bit longer than what she first anticipated.
Elizabeth's now told us she's sold 100 pieces to retailers and has just taken orders for many more. I think I'm coming to the conclusion that you don't have to be mad to be an entrepreneur, but it does help. Because you can't generalise about them, but the one thing they all have in common is they have very interesting characters. Charles Idjogo had to adapt his plans for umbrella vending machines once his investment deal broke down.
Hello, Zach. How are you? Yeah, not too bad. Do you stock umbrellas?
Most of Charles's trade now involves selling umbrellas directly to post offices and newsagents. Today he's trying to sign up new customers at a trade fair.
Obviously, when the investment fell through, there was a slight delay with getting those machines out and so obviously getting the stock out. And so I think maybe that's the mark of a good business, that we were quick enough to adapt, and rather than sit on stock that we were going to be left with, we decided to sell the stock through via a retail channel, and at the moment, I mean, that's probably the most successful part of the business.
I can't fault anybody else for starting a business with one idea and ending up, as they learn about the opportunity, changing things, sometimes really radically.
We've got a deal at the moment where we'll give you a pack of 60 umbrellas. We'll give you some of these to put on your counters. You sell them for $2.99. 45% margin each one you sell. Rather than charge you up front for the goods, because I know you don't want to pay up front for them, basically, then you've got them for all of November, all of December, all of January, before we actually have to pay anything.
Charles can clearly sell umbrellas to store owners, but it's the vending business he wants to develop, building on the one prototype machine he had when he pitched in Dragon's Den. He's just received a delivery of 50,000 umbrellas. Most of these will inevitably be sold through convenience stores, but Charles never exhibits any doubts about his grand vision for vending machines.
We are going into sites with the vending machine. That's not a problem. We will be going to sites. I mean, we had a couple of problems. The larger machine that we originally pitched for was a lot bigger. The footprint was a lot bigger. We were also restricted in some of the places that we could actually install that machine. And we went back to the drawing board and we developed a much smaller machine. So it's accessible for many more sites.
How many vending machines have you got, Charles?
I don't know because I don't look after the vending side in too much detail. I oversee our
This is not a multinational company we're talking about.
It's a small number. I don't know exactly, so I can't say,
Charles,
but it's a small number of
stop all
machines.
this. How many vending machines have you got operating where I could put my £2 in and get an umbrella?
I can't give you a precise number.
You can give me a
simply
precise
because I
number.
don't know.
You do know. It's
I
one,
don't
isn't
know.
it? It's one.
It's not one.
Charles later told me that he had no vending machines. He definitely likes to put a positive spin on things. But I can sympathise. If you don't talk things up, you'll never get off the ground. In some ways, being able to put a positive spin on everything is a requirement of the job. Charles is not idly dreaming about his umbrella machines. Although it's proving difficult to get them into the underground, Charles is working hard to get other sites on board. Today, he's at a shopping centre in central London.
Unit size you're looking at is probably about that sort of size. That site potentially, no problem with that. And then this wall here, that's my wall.
It's hard to tell whether Charles is quick-thinking and adaptable, or whether he's clinging on to his vending machine idea well after he should have dropped it.
Putting a vending machine for an umbrella machine into a shopping centre when you could walk next door and buy the same thing, that doesn't work. Where it did work was the umbrella machine at the end or edge of an exit exclusively for the London Underground. It's 11:30 at night, no shops are open, you're going to get drenched. Well, that £2 is going in that vending machine and I'm now dry all the way home. That works. Shopping centres, don't buy it.
People seem to come in and congregate out of the rain inside the centre. They're the people that will buy the products. And also, as you're actually leaving the centre, the idea is that you'll come and buy our products because it's a couple of pounds, as opposed to having to maybe come upstairs and pop into one of the shops here. It's convenience. It's on your way out, you'll buy it, rather than have to huddle under the entrance for 10-15 minutes while the rain stops.
Now, I'm waiting to meet Charles. I do have to tell you, Charles is always late, but he's due in a couple of minutes. We'll see if he makes it on time. But one thing about Charles is he's never predictable. He arrived bang on time. Whenever I've asked you about a mistake, you've always put a very positive spin on it.
That's because I think some of the mistakes that we've made, to be honest, I mean, ordering umbrellas with no logos are pretty... They're not, in the wider scheme of things and what we're trying to achieve, they're not kind of, they're not deal breakers, they're not things that will materially change our business. And so, I put a gloss on them because they don't really bother me in that respect.
I'm interested in whether entrepreneurs generally, not just you, but whether almost they have to be deluded in order to make it, because people like me would just be focusing on all the knockbacks and problems and hassles, but you just seem to take them as they come.
Well, I think the way that we look at it, it's almost like a learning curve. We start at the bottom, and as time goes on, you may get a knockback or whatever, but you learn from it, and I think that's the difference. If you had an idea, a simple or a really complex idea, but if you believed in it 100%, then that would give you the drive and the desire to kind of push it forward. So maybe that is delusion.
Well, believe it or not, Charles has negotiated his way through an array of teething problems and is finally installing his first umbrella machine in Manchester.
Obviously, it's been a bit of a struggle to get it here, but it's good to see that it's finally arrived. A bit heavier than we expected, but it's good to get it into the centre and get it up and running.
How we like to sing along, though the words are wrong. It really, really, really could happen. Yes, it really, really, really could happen.
Do you think Charles will make it as a businessman, maybe in umbrellas or anything else?
I do, yes, I really do. I think he's the type of character that I don't think he's a guy that's easily going to give up. And I think that he'll go on to the next opportunity. And I think he's the type of guy that will bring a success at some point.
Yeah, it feels good. It's taken a while. It's been a lot of hard work, but it's good to actually get it in there. And it's good to see it in the site. Hopefully the customers will start rolling in tomorrow.
And Charles says they did. In its first week and a half, he says, the machine dispensed over 300 umbrellas.
Not bad.
After her success with Destination London last year, Rachel Lowe is going global. She's planning international versions of her game and is in New York to meet possible distributors.
This is very surreal. It's, I don't know, like a dream. I never imagined I'd be in New York so soon. It's only been a year since I launched Destination London.
Rachel's teamed up with the people behind Trivial Pursuit and Pictionary to help with her international expansion. Today, they're meeting a big US toy distributor.
This is amazing. The only thing I've seen in the UK was the track. I haven't seen the illustration yet, so this is great to see it for the first time. We may have a few adjustments to do to the track and possibly the location of some of the attractions.
Sure. Well, I think that once we put our true New Yorker touch on it, it'll be complete. But it's definitely a great initial pass. I mean, really, really nicely done.
On the international stuff, I'm quite happy to make, to either take a royalty or to do a distribution deal using the people that I have on board. And I've got every confidence that they're going to do well with Destination across the globe. They do take a cut. I get less money per edition. But if you imagine,
But it's much less risk and much less work.
Yeah, no capital outlay. But it means that builds up, the world's a big place.
Well, they always say, make sure your home market is sewn up before you go international. And I think businesses can think that the international card is the easy one to play, to shoot straight to success. It's very tempting, isn't it, to think I'll go into America and I'll go into, the Far East and conquer everywhere. But the risk gets higher.
It's the half term before Christmas and Hamleys is packed, and Rachel is there. She's been given space to hold a first anniversary event for Destination London. She's hoping that her trusty team of family and friends are going to get the crowds interested in the game.
I want to bring more attention to the game because I want to achieve the #1 spot here again this year. It's tougher because I am head-to-head with Monopoly. I'm a small company and I can't compete with the marketing budget that the big companies have, so I just have to put my energy into it and all my resources, and hopefully we'll get a good profile again this year.
Destination London, Hamley's bestseller.
To prove her business is worth something, Rachel has to sell well for this second year. She's got the determination, but is that enough to ensure success? It looks good. There are lots of them. You're pretty happy.
Very happy.
Hamleys have done you pretty good service, actually, haven't they? I mean, they've given you nice space, little thing downstairs. You're paying them for that, though, right?
Well, they order good quantities of stock and they get their margin that they make. So, yes, they do very well out of it.
Now, Rachel, you used the word margin. It was the techie words that absolutely did it for you that last time in the Dragon's Den, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
What do you think now when you think back to that experience? It was pretty horrendous. I mean, I felt a bit horrendous.
Yeah, it was quite tough. But, at the end of the day, perhaps they were completely right. They are figures that, yes, I should have known from memory. But even now, I still have a problem memorising figures. I call it a need-to-know basis. I know what I need to know. And I have an accountant that does the rest of it for me.
For somebody to be an entrepreneur, they have no choice. They have to understand the numbers. You cannot be a virtuoso violinist unless you first learn the craft of playing a violin. You have to go through the craft to the art. Well, it is part of the craft of running a business to be able to count, to be able to understand the structure of the business, and that is understood through numbers.
This morning, down on the ground floor, we have got very own Rachel Lowe, the creator and inventor of one of the best-selling board games we've got in the store, called Destination London.
The Dragons refused to invest in Rachel's business. Did they miss a money-making opportunity?
It's fun for all the family.
she may have done well and sold quite a few of them, and I reckon the top sellers and Hamleys probably don't sell enormous numbers. You know, I don't think she's making a fortune. I'm not sitting there thinking, God, the Beatles got away in financial terms or in emotional terms.
The product is selling. That doesn't mean it's making good money. And I've seen no evidence to say it is or it isn't.
That can be a mistake people make generally, isn't it?
Yeah, they think they're going to sell something, and that's it, and they don't look at the infrastructure costs and all those sorts of things.
It's surprising just how much it costs to get a product onto the shelves. Destination London retails at £20. But when you take off the VAT, the costs of the retailer, the distributor and the manufacturer, there's not much change out of £20 left for Rachel. And she has her own costs to bear before she makes a salary or a profit. One of the claims is you've sold quite a lot of these things, but you're not making any money out of them. Just talk us through whether you're making money or not making money.
I have made money, and the money that I made, I've had to reinvest and put back into the company to generate more money. I've now achieved a place for the product in the market. I'm now in a very strong position, and I'm currently negotiating for investment, and now's a good time.
Rachel's evidently also protective when it comes to specific numbers, but it takes time for new businesses to generate profits. Now, though, is an important moment. Rachel's about to discover from Hamley's games buyer how well she's selling compared to last year.
This year, I would reckon we're doing about 60% of last year's figures, so it's still really, really good. And if you take into account the amount of PR last year compared to this year, it's fantastic, it's selling through, and I hope, you know, it's going to be in the top 20 Hamley's games for Christmas.
The competition for the Christmas bestseller spot is tough, but the game's not over yet.
Last year, the peak of the sales were in the final few days before Christmas for both editions, so, you know, it could still be a bestseller this Christmas.
And Hamleys now say that Destination London is one of its top 10 selling family board games this Christmas. The great thing about Dragon's Den is that 1 year on, the entrepreneurs have so many stories. Each is different and the results are never predictable. Biologist Paul Thomas hoped to impress the dragons with his innovative technique for growing truffles.
Demand for these truffles is currently so high that they command more per unit weight than is paid for gold on a wholesale price.
I think you're in dreamland, honestly.
I don't think this is ever going to make money. This is a pipe dream from university that you've had. So I'm out.
You go down, find
But one dragon was prepared to do a deal.
Okay.
Now Paul is on track, but without Simon's investment.
We didn't accept the offer from Simon, mainly because he was more interested in a percentage of me and everything I did rather than the company. So we discovered different ways of doing it without having to accept investment. We have landowners who are interested in farming truffles, and we share the costs, and then we establish a plantation together.
Paul's planting thousands of specially treated trees in the hope that truffles can be harvested in 5 years' time.
Hello Dragons, my name's David and I'm here to promote Maximat, an odour absorbing mat for dogs. This product...
David Tully hoped to quit work as an IT consultant and make loads of money from his blanket, which banished dog smells.
The real question is not whether or not it works, but whether or not people care.
Some dog owners perhaps like the smell of their own dog.
I think this has got all the ingredients of a classic business failure.
We've had a few problems on the technical side. The filters that we put inside the mat, there's been a production problem, which effectively means we can't produce the mats. Pretty gutted that it's the end of the road. You know, we've put a lot of time, effort and money into it. It's just so annoying that we can't actually, you know, take it one step further.
So the idea has ended up on the scrap heap, and David's moved on to a new business venture in Cyprus. The Dragons tore a strip off Gillian Kavanagh for her presentation as well as her business concept.
Mandala Roma is a new set-up company specialising in luxury
organic aromatherapy products.
This product is not unique, it's not different.
You don't have a logo, you don't have a full branding.
I have the logo.
Why don't you put it on the product?
You've got an absolutely astonishing, amazing inability to listen to anybody.
The Dragons were wrong to say that I'm not going to succeed. We've got the branding done. Everything's being manufactured and produced in England, and we've got forward orders, so it's going to market.
But her business is still run from her kitchen. She's waiting for that big order to come in.
In corporate life, people are unhappy. People dream of winning the lottery, and people dream of starting their own businesses, and somehow there's been just that sense that we're allowed to do it. I think kids are going to be growing up in the playground saying, I want to be one of those entrepreneurs like we see on telly.
You often hear people say anyone can be an entrepreneur if they just dream hard enough and persevere long enough. I don't think we've really seen much evidence for that. It's a really special person who can take the knocks and work that hard without keeling over. But for those who are really willing to try, it really is just like being in the Dragon's Den. It's painful if you fail, but if you succeed, the rewards are immense.
I would like the magazine, to sort of spin off and maybe do different versions of the magazine in different foreign editions. There are a lot of ideas milling around at the moment. Right now, the focus has to be on making the first magazine work. I'm not afraid of failure at all. I think you have to not be afraid. You have to take the risks and rise to the challenge.
Within 3 years, there's no reason why it couldn't be into the millions. I do believe that it will be a household name. It's not going to be a one-hit wonder. It's definitely going to be a game that will be here for now and for a long time.
In 3 years' time, I'd like us to be stocked in every major department store worldwide. And I would also like us to have a store within London. I would never focus on the negative. It's not an option for me. It never has been, and I think that's part of being a perfectionist, is just not to countenance failure.
You can't expect it to be a multinational business overnight, but I'm almost 100% sure that the various stages and strands of the business are exceeding the targets that we've got that will make us into a multinational business. I understand that every business can fail. Tomorrow, we may become a desert country with no rain, but the reality is that we won't. And so if the rain keeps coming down and we still have a good product to sell, then I'm sure that we won't fail.
For details on other entrepreneurs who appeared in the first series of Dragon's Den, visit our website, where you can also find tips on how to be an entrepreneur yourself.
And if you've got a business dream, remember digital viewers can check the latest figures on loans and interest rates with BBC I. Press red now. Later here on BBC Two, there's a bust-up brewing big time in ancient Rome at 9.